Thanks, Andy, and thanks for having me. So we are here because there are two back-to-back meetings. One is statutory, which starts on Wednesday, and that brings in all our member states in the sub-region, so all the 11 countries that we support in this region. And in that meeting, the thematic focus, so each of these meetings, which is our statutory meeting, it happens every year, we choose a theme that is resonating for the sub-region. But for us to be able to discuss the theme, we also have to produce analytical reports. So the expert group meetings, the ad hoc expert group meetings that we're having today and tomorrow, will be looking into those reports, and both of them are focusing on energy, the energy situation in the region, and one, of course, looking at the opportunities that exist in terms of renewable energies. As you know, the sub-region, but particularly Zambia right now, is faced with crippling energy deficit. Now we actually up to 21 hours a day without no power. In some instances, it can actually go over 3 days without power. So that really is crippling. And recognizing that there are huge opportunities that exist in terms of diversification of energy sources or energy mixes, one of the reports will be looking into that specifically. So the challenges, but also the opportunities that exist. The other ad hoc expert group meetings is primarily focused on financing. So yes, I think we can look at all the opportunities, but if you don't have the resources to be able to adopt all these technologies, then we do have a challenge and a problem. So financing is another part of the expert group meetings. We have to do two things. One is to make sure that we are dealing with, because what is causing all of this in any case, we always have to have climate change at the back of our mind. Because of climate change, we're seeing different phenomena in the sub-region. In other years, we'll see floods, we'll see cyclones, and so on, which also has its own issues in terms of food security, but also destroying infrastructure, destroying jobs, and so on. So that's just one part. And the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing, just like anybody else in the globe and in Africa, is because of climate change. So there is that consideration that we have to consider. And if you look in terms of Southern Africa, in our regions, in terms of the energy mix, and I think we are taking the development model like developed countries did, which is, you go with a technology or a system that is cheaper for you to do. So if you look in terms of the energy mix of the sub-region, of course it varies, but you look in big countries like South Africa, 80% of their energy generation comes from coal, and that's a fossil fuel, has huge implications in terms of the environment, the impact on the environment, and so on. And alongside South Africa, you also do have a country like Botswana that is also, quite coal dependent, Zimbabwe as well, and a few others. And you will see there's actually even Mozambique, they've recently invested in another coal plant. And yet the challenge of fossil fuels, the impact on the climate, and what we're actually seeing and facing at a livelihood level is quite impactful. So there is the consideration, first of all, on the environmental side. On the other side, if you then take a country like Zambia, which, like I mentioned, may have done it right, 84% or 85% of the energy comes from hydro power, but then the reality also comes in terms of a period or year like this year where we have massive droughts, and the capacity is, I think in August we were under 20%. I think we're under 7% now, maybe with the rains because they've started, it will pick up. But this is a reality that countries have to grapple with. So for the ad hoc experts group meetings, I think the objective there is much clearer, because we do have these draft reports that has kind of collected a lot of what you've been asking, all the key issues in terms of whether it's financing and how to do this in a just way. We're hoping that we're going to get a bit more insight, because a lot of them, they're expert in the field, they know the field well, and what I had also shared a little bit in my speech in terms of, I don't think there's anybody in this room or in that room that can say I'm not affected by this issue, right? But we're all coming from different angles. So it is those insights that we need, because sometimes I find as policymakers, we get it wrong because we sit in a room and, kind of a bit far removed from the reality. But it's to be able to get those insights from consumers, like we told, and which is all of us, entrepreneurs, investors, because it will be interesting for me to hear the private sector. I mean, you just spoke about independent power producers. For them, what is it that they're looking into for them to be able to invest in a sector like this? So if we can get all of those insights, and then of course policymakers, hopefully that we can walk away with actionable recommendations that we can take forward, like I also mentioned to ministers of finance, but also energy and so on, at the next conference of ministers of finance and so on in 2025. So that's one big bit, is to make sure that our reports, are watertight in terms of the recommendations. The second, which will build up into our statutory meeting starting on Wednesday, again, it's basically being able to amplify all of these key messages that we can take at that senior experts level, which I'm hoping that we'll have a lot of the permanent secretaries and so on. And then finally, I think the third aspect is really on the financing, because it's a reality. We can all come with all the recommendations that we need, but if we can't get the financing piece right, then we are hugely challenged in that sense.